Good afternoon. Today I wanted to talk about a subject that came up as one of my core questions that I answered. And it's always controversial when I bring it up, but it happens to do with politics. And as somebody who spent 24 years involved in politics, one man or another, beginning as a 14-year-old in Messina, New York, I have heard everyone say at some point, they've heard somebody say, if the Republicans just moderated position X, or, on the other hand, I'd be a Democrat if they just would moderate position Y. What I've learned over the last quarter century is that there is no such thing as moderates. My name is Frank Sakria. This is going to be probably a little bit more than 5 minutes about why moderate nation just does not exist in politics. Like and subscribe below if you agree, or just like to hear people complain, because I hopefully will get some comments on this one. So now, Frank, how can it be? How can there really be nothing? How can there really be no moderates? And the reality is, yep, nobody's a moderate on anything. Come on, man. Frank, you're full of shit. How can nobody be a moderate? Really, what are the moderate positions that you think that people should take? You know what? I'm going to give you two different scenarios. One in which there's no such thing as a moderate, and two, we all are moderates, but yeah, it's the periphery that keeps it getting done, so there's no way to moderate that position either. The easiest one to do when it comes to moderates is the one that flames everybody. I'm talking about abortion. Now, what is the moderate position in an abortion argument? I want you to think about that one for a second. Is it the politician who says, you know, I support a woman's right to choose, but I would limit it the third trimester abortions? Really, that's a moderate position. You're okay with killing 1.4 million children, but those last 300 that are near birth, I'm keeping them alive. Yeah? Oh, and on the other side, I oppose abortion except in the case of keeping a woman alive. Let me get this right. You believe that the government should have every right to stop a woman from doing what she wants with her body, except if it, might cause her death. Moderate. Yeah, this is an issue where there is no such thing as moderate. And guess what? That's probably how it's always going to be. Now you may be thinking, Frank, what I really mean is that political parties shouldn't have abortion in their platform. And my answer is, okay, that's a good thought. What happens to primaries? Oh, eventually that one set of candidates, if it's a very important issue, will eventually win out the day, and, well, the other side will just shut up. And, when did that happen? Oh, yeah, that was on the issue of abortion. Now, I know what you're thinking. Abortion's been legal since 1973, and ever since then, every Republican has been pro life and every Democrat has been pro choice. And that is, of course, bullshit. In the 1970s, the Republicans nominated their, acting president, Gerald Ford, pro choice. And then in 1980, it was a case between Ronald Reagan, who, as we all know, was staunchly pro life and anti abortion, except, of course, for the fact that he had passed the first abortion rights law in California, against George H.W. Bush, who was always opposed to abortion, except, of course, when he wasn't, when he was running for president in 1980, and changed his views to become the vice president. Oh, yeah, and he also had to stop calling Reaganomics voodoo economics. Yeah, all of you historians who think that voodoo economics was originally a Democratic term, yeah, it was what George H.W. Bush called Reagan's policies. Yeah. And on the other side, most Democrats were not exactly liberated by the pro abortion stance that came out of Roe v. Wade. And it took a long time for Democrats to first officially make a position that they supported a woman's right to choose, and then to actually, nominate candidates who were pro-choice. And but what do we have now? Well, and basically, if you're a Republican, unless you are running for statewide office in New York, you better be pro-life. And if you're running for statewide office in New York, you better be pro-choice because you can't win without it. And if you're a Democrat, unless you are running for statewide office in every state except for Pennsylvania, and in Pennsylvania, you better damn well be pro-life. You better be pro-choice if you're going to win any major contest, or if you want to get money to serve in major government. So yeah, the moderate or not choosing a position, yeah, that doesn't last very long. Now you may be saying, well, what is something that we all agree with and it's just periphery and that there really is no moderate because we already are moderates? Yeah, that one's easy too. It's called immigration. Wait, what? Immigration is a moderate position and everyone's pretty much on the same page? Yeah, yeah. So let's go with what you hear in public. Yeah, Republicans oppose all immigrants from coming to this country. Yeah, that's a crock of shit. Democrats believe in open borders and we should all come here. Yeah, that's also bull. Yeah, yeah. You've never heard a political candidate ever get elected who believed in open borders for all. It just doesn't happen. And the same as on the other hand, it hasn't happened in a very long time that you oppose all immigration. And here's why. As Americans, let's go through some of the uncomfortable truths. Nobody disagrees with immigrants coming from the UK, Canada, Australia, New Zealand. Why? They all speak English. Yeah, and they're all white. Yeah, well, I got a lot of relatives that are, from those countries who aren't. But yeah, you could throw in Jamaica, the Bahamas, South Africa. If you're an English speaker and you have a, Judeo-Christian background, yeah, we usually don't give a care about you coming into this country, right? Now throw in, well, Republicans hate Hispanics. Yeah, really? Yeah, tell that to Cubans. Yeah, yeah. We're kind of, let me see. We're kind of the group that advocates for repealing red foot, dry foot, and just saying that any Cuban who wants to come here can come here. And yeah, we don't have a problem with Carlos Slim coming to the United States. And if you don't know who Carlos Slim is, he's only the most wealthiest Mexican and at sometimes is the wealthiest person on the planet. Yeah, nobody has a problem with very wealthy people or very successful people coming to the United States. Now, as Republicans, we may hate George Soros' policies, and as Democrats, you may attest the Murdoch family and their kin and Fox News and Sky Broadcasting. But guess what? You don't mind that these billionaires want to come to this country. And for the most part, if you got a fat stack of cash and you want to come to America, we ain't got a problem with you either. But Americans, let me see, Republicans, they don't want Hispanics come to this country. Oh, really? Yeah. Ask most Republicans if you would be willing to allow greater immigration to those who are carrying out jobs that Americans are unwilling or unable to do. And you go, wait a minute, what are you talking about? The immigrants take our jobs. Really? Yeah, farm laborers. Oh, yeah, most Americans don't want to do that job. Nurses, doctors. Well, that's a lot of education and yeah, they can come here. And guess what? There may be some difference in the amount of numbers that should be allowed in here. And yeah, maybe you want to, spend more money on, people who go to school who are domestic so they become nurses and doctors. And maybe, you're opposed to very specialized positions that no other American can do. Like maybe you don't really care that some guy from, Europe wants to play soccer or that somebody from the Caribbean can hit a baseball. Maybe they shouldn't come here for $1 million a year, but yeah, for the most part, most Americans on both sides don't care. If you have a really talented person who wants to come to this country who's doing a job that either Americans are unqualified or unable to do, yeah. So what are we talking about here? Chain migration? That's a word that that's a trigger word for some people. Yeah, most people say, hey, if you get here, eventually you can bring your spouse over and your kids. Now we can disagree whether grandparents should be on that list or adult parents or cousins and aunts and uncles. We can differentiate on what there could be. But yeah, most people don't oppose it. And by the way, if Democrats were so keen on expanding migration, why does it take years for Americans who marry non-Americans to get their non-American partners into the United States? And if you think I'm being full of it, I know multiple people who had to wait, who are Republican, some are Democrat, some are independent, who had to wait for their spouses to come here legally. Okay, so what are we fighting about? Oh, illegal immigration, right? That's what we're really fighting about, and we're talking about dreamers. It's a very small point, right? And it's a big point, and it matters to a lot of people. But the reality is that most immigration, we pretty much all agree. We pretty much all agree on both parties that about 1 to 1.2 million people should legally enter this country. And we are talking about a handful of people. Granted, you hear estimates that's 11 million. It's probably not that. But 1.1 to 1.3 million people every year can come into this country legally, and we agree on that. We're talking about a few 100,000 who enter this country illegally. And on that, most people say send them home, except for a very small portion under the age of 18. And then we're like, and that's what we're fighting about. But because we're fighting about that portion, you think you're a moderate, or we should have a moderation on the positions. Like, how are you going to moderate it? You want to change the position. That's great, but that's not a moderating position. But you may say, well, alrighty, so I'm a pro-choice, pro-gun, pro-death penalty, pro-Obamacare, pro-low taxes person. I don't fit into a party. That's great. You're not a moderate. You're an independent. And independents are fine. But if you're that type of person who believes in a woman's right to choose, but also supports death penalty, low taxes, a repeal of Obamacare, and wants government regulation to be pretty low on businesses, you're a Republican. And if you're somebody out there who does not believe that as a business owner, that they should have to pay for their employees' 25-year-old kid who's in his 6th year of a 4-year degree for their health care, but at the same time, you're also believing gun control, you're pro-choice, you're opposed to the death penalty, you do want some taxes for infrastructure and to go towards higher salaries for teachers, you're a Democrat. So what do? Don't let the extremes of both parties pick your nominee who you don't like, because then you get two sides of a shitty coin. One of the reasons why Donald Trump could get nominated is because so many Republicans over the last 30 years decided that they wanted to leave. And the reason why Bernie Sanders got so close, and the reason why the Democrats probably will screw this up and will probably choose somebody who's so liberal, is because so many people decided they wanted to be an independent and lose their power instead of staying in and, running for office, supporting candidates that they support, voting for candidates that have opinions that they agree with. So this has been way more than 5 minutes, but I hope this shows that, moderates don't exist. And if you think you're a moderate, you're really not. Like and subscribe and complain down below.